I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. You know how they say that the signs are always there, but we choose to ignore them? Well, I was knee-deep in denial about my marriage to Rachel. We had been together for over 6 years. For the most part, it felt perfect. We laughed, we traveled, and I thought we communicated well. At least I thought so until things started to change. It all began subtly. Rachel, usually the life of the party, started coming home later from work. She said it was because of this new project she was involved in. I believed her. I mean, she works in marketing and I'm sure deadlines can get intense. But then I started noticing her phone was always glued to her hand. I'd catch her texting and quickly hide her screen whenever I walked by. The little things that used to make me smile, like her leaving love notes around the house, became rare artifacts from a happier past. Naturally, I tried to dig deeper. I didn't want to be that jealous husband, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I started working on an app designed to help couples communicate better. It was a project I poured my heart into, stemming from my own frustrations. I thought if I could create something that would help couples express their feelings, maybe I could learn to navigate our own relationship better. Little did I know that while I was developing technology from my trauma, Rachel was busy weaving her own web of lies. One evening, after a long day of coding, I decided to surprise her with dinner. I got home early only to find her car in the driveway. For a fleeting moment, I felt a surge of happiness, but as I walked into the house, it quickly dissipated. The kitchen was dark and the smell of takeout hung in the air. I called out for her, but no response came. Confused, I made my way to the living room where I heard muffled voices. I peered around the corner and there it was, Rachel on the couch, giggling, her phone pressed to her ear. It was a man's voice, and from the way she laughed and flirted, it was clear this was not a business call. I felt the blood drain from my face as reality hit me. Like a ton of bricks, my heart raced as I sneaked back into the kitchen, my mind swirling with disbelief. I kept replaying the moments leading up to this. The late nights, the excuses, the lack of intimacy between us, it all clicked into place sharper than ever. I didn't confront her then. Instead, I let her believe I was oblivious. But the truth was, I was devastated. The woman I thought I knew was betraying me right under my nose. It was as if an intruder had broken into my life, stealing the joy and trust I'd built. I would have to confront her, but for now I needed a plan. I couldn't just let this slide. I had invested everything into our marriage, and I wasn't going to allow it to dissolve without a fight. So I decided to watch and gather evidence. I knew I had to confront her with facts, not just my raging emotions. Over the next few weeks, I started keeping track of her behavior. Late nights became early mornings, and those innocent phone calls turned into secretive conversations. I felt like a detective in my own life, piecing together the puzzle of her betrayal. I couldn't believe I had to resort to this, but here I was, heartbroken, betrayed, and furious. The moment I caught her in her lies would change everything. Holding onto that painful knowledge was eating me alive, and I was ready to take action. I just needed to gather enough evidence to confront her. I wanted her to see how far she had fallen into her own deceit. I wanted her to know that I wasn't going to let her get away with this. Little did I know, the confrontation would send us spiraling into a whirlwind of emotions that neither of us could have anticipated. The anger, sadness, and betrayal would soon collide in a way that would change the course of our lives forever. As the days turned into weeks, I continued to gather more evidence, and each new revelation deepened my resolve to confront Rachel. I had never imagined I would need to play this role in my own life, but the truth was I could feel myself starting to unravel. I was barely sleeping, my appetite had vanished, and the weight of her betrayal hung over me like a dark cloud. I spent countless late nights in of my computer, only half focused on my app. The irony was not lost on me. I was creating something to help couples communicate better while mine was crumbling before my eyes. One fateful Friday evening, I decided that I could take it no longer. I had seen Rachel's text messages pop up on her phone. Too often, they were flirtatious and laced with innuendos. After one particularly revealing exchange, my gut twisted with anger and disbelief. I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. It was time to confront her, and I needed to do it when she least expected it. I had to catch her off guard, so I planned a casual evening for when she returned from work. I prepared a simple dinner and made sure I was relaxed, though my heart raced with anticipation. When Rachel finally walked in, she seemed pleasantly surprised by the setup. She flashed that radiant smile that had once filled my heart with warmth, but now it felt like the calm before the storm. We chatted about her day, her voice light and carefree. I played along, masking my anger and hurt behind a facade of normalcy, but inside I was boiling. Once we finished dinner and moved to the living room, I decided it was time. I could no longer hide my feelings. I took a deep breath and spoke, trying to keep my voice steady. "Rachel, we need to talk about something serious." The smile fell from her face and I could see the flicker of concern in her eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, feigning innocence, but I could tell she was already preparing herself for the worst. I leaned in, fixing my gaze on her. "I know about the late nights. I know about the phone calls. I know you've been lying to me." There was a brief moment of silence and then the storm broke. "What are you talking about?" she exclaimed, her tone shifting from confusion to indignation in an instant. "You're being ridiculous. I've been working hard and I don't have to explain myself to you." "Stop," I interrupted, my voice rising as hurt swallowed my composure. "I saw the texts. I heard you laughing on the phone with another man." Each word dripped with emotion. "You can't deny it any longer." Rachel's face contorted with a mix of anger and frustration. She was cornered. "Those were just friends. You're being paranoid. You're always so consumed with that stupid app of yours that you can't even see what's happening in the real world." That was her go-to defense. Blame the app I had created, the thing I thought could bridge the gap between us. It felt like a slap in the face. Friends. Is that what you call it when you flirt with someone else? When you replace intimacy with secrecy? I could feel the intensity of the moment pooling around us like a thick fog. "You're lying, Rachel." The red in her cheeks flared. "You're making this into something it's not. You're insecure and this isn't about me, it's about you." The words dripped with venom. She had mastered the art of deflection. I felt the walls closing in around me, the weight of her betrayal suffocating. "I can't believe you would try to turn this around on me," I shouted, the frustration boiling over. "I've been trying to be supportive, trying to understand, while you've been out there betraying me." A tense silence enveloped us, and in that moment I could see the facade starting to crack. Her defenses were crumbling, revealing a mix of fear and annoyance. "You need to trust me," she said, but I could hear the desperation behind those words. "You're not being fair." "Fair?" I scoffed, my anger morphing into despair. "How is cheating fair? How is lying fair? You've chosen someone else over me." The emotional turmoil was overwhelming. My heart raced and my palms felt clammy. With each heated word, I could feel my heart shredding into pieces. I thought back to the years we spent together, the laughter, the plans, the dreams. They felt like distant memories, slipping through my fingers like sand. Rachel's eyes filled with something resembling guilt, but it quickly morphed back into defensiveness. "I'll admit I've been distant, but I didn't mean for it to come to this." The half-hearted admission felt like a knife to the gut. "Didn't mean for what to come to this?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What did you think would happen when you chose to share your life with someone else?" The confrontation had turned into a battle of wills, and I wasn't sure who was winning. All I knew was that my heart was breaking, and her excuses were ringing hollow. In that moment, I realized that the woman I thought I knew was slipping away, replaced by a stranger who called herself Rachel. The emotional impact of this confrontation lingered heavily in the air, and the unspoken truth hung like a noose around our throats. The damage had been done, and no amount of words could change that. I had to decide how I wanted to move forward, and I knew it would take more than just anger to heal the wounds she had inflicted. In the wake of that explosive confrontation, silence filled the room like a dense fog, heavy and suffocating. I could see the flicker of emotions playing across Rachel's face: anger, guilt, defensiveness, and a tinge of fear. She was trying to keep her composure, but I could sense her unraveling. The mask she wore was slipping, and I wondered how long she had hidden behind it. I took a moment to collect my thoughts, feeling the weight of betrayal pressing down on my chest. I couldn't believe how quickly everything had spiraled out of control. I had come into this confrontation expecting to find some semblance of understanding or remorse, but what I got was a wall of excuses and denial. The very woman I had trusted had shattered my reality. Rachel, I began, my voice steady but raw, this isn't just about you being distant. It's about trust, about loyalty, things we built our relationship on. And now that foundation feels like quicksand. I felt the heat of my words swirling around us, and I could see her flinch. Can we just talk about this rationally? She replied, her tone shifting from defensive to pleading. You're blowing everything out of proportion. I told you those texts were nothing. I don't even know why I talked to him like that. Her words felt like a feeble attempt to brush away the red flags waving in front of my face. Nothing. I shot back, disbelief coloring my tone. You think I'm supposed to believe that? You've been sneaking around. You've been lying, and now you're trying to downplay it like it's no big deal. My heart raced as frustration spiraled into anger. I was just trying to cope, she exclaimed, her voice rising. Things between us have felt strained. I didn't mean for it to happen, but I was looking for attention. You were so wrapped up in your app that I felt alone. And there it was, the attempt to turn the blame back to me. I had expected it, but hearing it thrown back in my face stung like a slap. So you chose to cheat. That's your solution, instead of talking to me about how you were feeling. I could feel the betrayal simmering in my chest, a boiling cauldron threatening to overflow. I didn't mean it like that, she insisted. I thought I could handle it. I thought I could keep everything separate. I never wanted to hurt you. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears, but I was too far gone to feel sympathy. Do you have any idea what this feels like? I shot back. You've shattered my trust, and now you're trying to paint yourself as a victim. I felt the anger bubbling within me, a volcanic eruption of emotions that demanded to be released. What do you want from me? She asked, desperate and raw. Do you want me to apologize? I'm sorry, I never wanted to hurt you. An apology isn't enough, I said, my voice low and cold. I need to know what you want, Rachel. Do you even want this marriage anymore? Because I can't keep doing this if you don't. The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken implications. I could see the gears turning in her mind, but her hesitation told me everything. I don't know, she finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. I need time to think. Time, the one thing I didn't have. My heart raced as I snapped back. You've had time, you've had months of late nights and excuses. How much more time do you need to think about someone else? Her silence was deafening. I watched her face twist with conflicting emotions, guilt, confusion, and a hint of defiance. I'll do better, she finally said. I promise I'll make it right, just give me a chance. But deep down, I knew that words were just words. I had seen too many empty promises before, and the ache in my chest told me that trust, once broken, was not easily mended. Rachel, I sighed, running a hand through my hair. I don't know if I can just forget this. It's going to take more than a promise. In that moment, I realized that I had a choice to make. I could either choose to fight for a relationship that felt like it was slipping through my fingers, or I could walk away and protect myself from further pain. As I weighed my options, I could feel the heaviness of my own heart, the fear of being alone battling against the fear of being with someone who had chosen betrayal over love. I need space, I finally said, my voice steady but laced with sorrow. I think we need to take a step back and figure out what we want. I can't be in this limbo anymore. Rachel's face fell, and for the first time I saw the cracks in her facade widen. You can't be serious, she said, her voice trembling. You're going to throw everything away. It's not about throwing it away, I replied, my resolve firm. It's about finding out if this is worth saving. I can't pretend everything is fine while you're out there betraying my trust. And with that, I walked away from the conversation, leaving her standing there, the weight of our shattered relationship hanging heavily in the air. The emotional impact of that moment lingered long after I left the room, a fog of uncertainty settling over my heart. What had once been a loving partnership had devolved into a series of painful choices, and I stood at a crossroads. The path ahead was clouded with uncertainty, but I knew one thing for sure. I needed to reclaim my sense of self, even if it meant facing the heartache of our broken marriage. As I lay in bed that night, I couldn't help but wonder how we had arrived at this point. Would I be able to move forward, or was I destined to linger in this painful limbo forever? The days that followed our confrontation felt like an unending haze. The space I requested from Rachel turned into a tightrope walk of emotions. I went through the motions of daily life, work, friends, and even those moments I used to cherish, but everything felt muted. My mind was a chaotic whirlpool of thoughts, regret, and anger. I tossed and turned at night, haunted by memories of happier times and plagued by visions of her betrayal. Rachel respected my request for space, or at least she attempted to. She would text occasionally, asking how I was doing and expressing remorse, but I found it hard to engage. Each message felt like a reminder of the gulf that had opened between us. I had started to withdraw into myself, seeking solace in my work and my app development. Irony struck me again. I was still working on something meant to help couples communicate while my own communication was severed at the root. At times, I would find myself wondering if I was making the right choice. Was I being too harsh? Could forgiveness ever be part of the equation? I missed her laughter, the way she would curl up on the couch next to me while we watched our favorite shows. But the thought of her betrayal always pulled me back to reality, a painful reminder of why I had chosen this path. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights that I had a breakthrough with my app. I had been working on an algorithm to detect relationship red flags, something I hoped would help couples like us avoid the pitfalls I found myself trapped in. I poured my emotional turmoil into coding, thinking perhaps my pain could help others. As I typed, I realized I was not only trying to help others, I was trying to understand my own situation better. I designed the algorithm to analyze communication patterns, emotional responses, and frequency of affectionate exchanges. I thought about Rachel and how our communication had deteriorated. The app could serve as a tool to highlight issues before they became catastrophic, like a lighthouse guiding ships away from treacherous waters. I was driven to make something good from my pain, but it didn't fill the void left by Rachel's betrayal. 2 weeks after the confrontation, I received an unexpected phone call. It was my best friend, Jake, who had been my confidant through this tumultuous time. "Hey man, let's grab a drink. I want to check in on you," he said, his voice a mix of concern and camaraderie. I hesitated, unsure if I wanted to face the world outside my self-imposed exile, but I knew I needed to reconnect with someone who understood me. "Yeah, sure, let's do it," I agreed. Hopping a night out could help clear my mind. We met at our usual bar, a cozy place with dim lighting and a laid-back vibe. Jake ordered us a couple of beers and we settled into a booth. As we talked, I found myself opening up about everything, the app, Rachel, and how lost I felt. Jake listened intently, nodding along and offering support when needed. It felt good to share my thoughts with someone who understood the weight of my situation. "Look, man," Jake said, leaning forward, "I know it's hard right now, but you need to think about what you really want. This may be a chance for you to reassess your life and what you want in a partner." "Yeah, but I don't want to just throw away everything we've built," I replied, feeling that familiar tug of guilt. "I still love her even after everything." "We're human and we make mistakes," Jake said, his tone serious. "But it's important to realize that love isn't enough if trust is broken. You deserve more than just love. You deserve respect and loyalty." His words resonated with me, and I realized I needed to take them to heart. I had spent so much time wallowing in my pain and uncertainty that I hadn't clarified what I truly wanted. As we continued to drink and talk, I began to feel a flicker of clarity emerging from the chaos in my mind. That night, after returning home, I couldn't shake Jake's words. I sat down with my laptop, determined to pour my feelings into my work. I updated my app, refining the algorithms to reflect not just communication patterns but emotional intelligence. I was determined to build something that could save relationships, potentially helping couples recognize the signs before it was too late. Days turned into a week, and I poured more energy into my app than ever before. I was excited about the possibilities it could offer, but I also knew that I had to make a decision about Rachel. I couldn't let myself get lost in tech while my heart was in turmoil. Finally, I reached out to Rachel, suggesting we meet to talk. I needed to see her face to face and gauge her sincerity. Sitting in that cafe, the air thick with tension, I felt the weight of our history pressing down on both of us. She looked different, more vulnerable yet fraught with anxiety. I wondered if she felt the same pang of uncertainty I did. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, her voice quiet as we sat across from each other. "I know things have been hard." "Yeah, they have," I replied, letting the silence hang for a moment. "I've been reflecting on everything." "I've been thinking too," she said, her eyes searching mine. "I miss us. I never wanted to hurt you. I made a mistake and I want to make it right." Her words hung in the air, heavy with longing and guilt, but part of me remained cautious. "Rachel, I need to know if you're sincere. I need to know if you're willing to put in the work to rebuild what we had." "I am," she said, her voice earnest. "I've been seeing a therapist to work through my feelings. I want you back in my life." It was a lot to take in, and while my heart ached for her, I couldn't ignore the voice in my head reminding me of the pain she had caused. "I have to think about what I want too," I replied, my voice steady but firm. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly. "I want honesty. I want respect. I want to feel safe in this relationship," I said, feeling the weight of my words. "But I can't promise anything until I know we're on the same page." The conversation marked a turning point, one that would lead us down a path of possible healing or painful separation. I had opened the door to the idea of reconciliation, but I needed time to see if I could truly trust her again. The emotional impact of those decisions would be profound, and as we parted ways, I felt the flicker of hope mingling with uncertainty. My heart was still heavy, but I knew I had to keep moving forward, for my own sake and for whatever lay ahead. In the days following my conversation with Rachel, the air felt charged with unresolved tension. I had opened a door to possibility, but I was acutely aware that the path ahead was fraught with challenges. Rachel had committed to working through her issues, and I was willing to give her a chance, but I remained cautious. I needed to protect my heart while still allowing space for healing. Over the next week, I focused on my app, channeling my emotions into the project that had become both a refuge and a beacon of hope. I tweaked the algorithms to identify not just communication breakdowns, but also emotional fluctuations and patterns of behavior that could indicate deeper issues. The more I worked on it, the more I realized how vital it was to understand ourselves and our partners. Despite my determination to stay occupied, I found it hard to shake off the emotional weight I was carrying. I kept thinking about Rachel's sincerity, wondering if she truly meant what she said. I wanted to believe her, but a nagging doubt lingered in my mind. Could someone who had betrayed me so profoundly really change? At times, I would receive texts from Rachel, updates about her therapy sessions, and snippets of her realizations. I appreciated the effort, but I still felt like I was walking a tightrope, unsure of where it would lead. One day, as I was working on a new feature for the app, I received a call from Jake. "Hey, how are you holding up?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. "Honestly, I'm trying to figure out what's next," I admitted. "Rachel's making an effort, but I still can't shake the feeling that it might not be enough." "Have you thought about what you want?" he probed. "I mean, really want." His question hit home harder than I expected. "Yeah, I want trust back. I want the intimacy we had before, but I also want to know that I'm not setting myself up for more heartache." "Sounds about right," Jake replied thoughtfully. "You deserve to be with someone who understands that loyalty is non-negotiable. Don't settle for anything less." His words echoed in my mind, and I knew I had to take them to heart. As I hung up, I felt a renewed sense of determination. I decided it was time for another conversation with Rachel, one that would dig deeper into the heart of our relationship. I needed to know if we could truly rebuild what had been lost. I reached out to Rachel, suggesting we meet again. This time I wanted to lay everything on the table. When we met, I chose a different cafe, one with a more intimate atmosphere. The ambience felt right, and I hoped it would encourage an open dialogue. As Rachel arrived, I noticed a flicker of nervousness in her eyes. She smiled, but it didn't reach the corners of her mouth. "Hey," she said, taking a seat across from me. "Thanks for meeting again." "Of course," I replied, trying to project a sense of calm. "I think we need to talk about what we want moving forward." Agreed, she said, her voice steady but tinged with anxiety. I've been reflecting a lot since our last talk. I want to be transparent and show you I'm committed to making this work. Good, I said, feeling a flicker of hope. But I need to know how you plan to regain my trust. I can't go back to the way things were without knowing that you've really changed. She took a deep breath, and I could see the wheels turning in her head as she prepared to respond. I've started being more open about my feelings, especially in therapy. I realized I had been running away from the hard conversations instead of facing them. I want to be honest with you about everything, no matter how uncomfortable it is. Honesty is a start, I said, nodding. But it's not just about words. I need to see actions. Can you commit to being open and vulnerable with me? Yes, she said, her gaze unwavering. I understand that it's going to take time. I want to be the partner you deserve, and I'm willing to put in the effort. I appreciated her commitment, but I knew actions would speak louder than words. I also want to work on this together. I want us to engage in activities that promote communication and trust. Maybe we can even use the app I've been developing as a tool for us. That idea seemed to spark something in her. I'd love that. If we can use it together, it might help us understand each other better. As we talked, I felt a glimmer of hope creep in, an ember of possibility that perhaps we could navigate this storm together. But I couldn't ignore the hard truths either. Rachel, I still need to know that we're both committed to this, otherwise I don't think it can work. I promise you that I'm committed, she said, her voice sincere. I don't want to lose you. That moment, sitting across from her, I realized we were both standing at the brink of a decision. The emotional impact of my choices weighed heavily on my mind, but I knew I had to trust my instincts. It was a risk, but a necessary one if we were to rebuild. As we wrapped up our conversation, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. We were still far from healed, but perhaps we were moving in the right direction. I left that cafe with a renewed sense of purpose, a determination to rebuild our connection and to navigate the complexities of love and trust. Yet, a part of me remained on guard, aware that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges. But I also knew that I was willing to try, to put in the effort, and to see if we could truly come back from the brink of disaster. The choice was mine, and I was ready to step forward, even if it meant facing the uncertain aftermath of our shared history. As the weeks rolled into months, Rachel and I embarked on a tentative journey toward healing. The process was anything but smooth. It was filled with awkward conversations, moments of vulnerability, and painful truths. We were learning to navigate the minefield of our past while attempting to build a new foundation. Using my app as a guide, we began to engage in deeper conversations about our feelings, needs, and fears. It became a tool for us, a way to articulate the things that had been left unsaid for far too long. We used it to analyze our communication patterns, identifying moments when we felt disconnected or misunderstood. Each session led to deeper realizations about ourselves and each other, and it forced us to confront the uncomfortable realities of our relationship. Rachel committed to her therapy sessions, and I could see her making strides in understanding her motivations and fears. It was encouraging to witness her growth, but there were still days when the shadows of doubt loomed large in my mind. I often found myself wondering if I could truly trust her words or if she would slip back into old patterns. One evening, as we sat together on the couch, I decided to bring up a topic that had been weighing heavily on my heart. Rachel, I began, my voice steady but filled with apprehension. Do you think we'll ever truly get past what happened? She looked at me, her expression thoughtful. I hope so. I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen or that it didn't hurt, but I believe we can learn from it and grow stronger together. Her candidness was refreshing, and I appreciated her honesty. I want to believe that, I replied, my eyes searching hers for the sincerity I needed to see. But I also need to know how you're feeling about everything. It's still hard for me to shake off the past. Returning the gaze, Rachel nodded slowly. It's hard for me too. I think about it every day, about how I betrayed your trust and what it cost us. But I know I can't change the past. I can only focus on being better moving forward. I want to earn back your trust. Her words resonated with me, and I felt a flicker of hope. I realized that while the scars of betrayal would always be a part of our history, I could choose to focus on the future and the effort we were both putting into our relationship. It was going to take time, but I was ready to invest in the possibility of us. As spring turned into summer, we found ourselves falling back into a more familiar rhythm. I could see Rachel's commitment shining through her actions. She was more attentive, more present, and genuinely invested in our relationship. Slowly but surely, I started to lower my defenses. We spent weekends exploring new hobbies together, cooking, and revisiting places that held special memories. Yet, dark moments would occasionally creep in, and I had to confront my insecurities head-on. I learned that healing wasn't linear. It was a winding road filled with ups and downs. Some days, I would feel the weight of doubt pressing heavily on my shoulders, but Rachel was there to remind me that we were in this together. She had her moments of vulnerability as well, and we leaned on each other for support. One night, as we sat on our balcony watching the sunset, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. The vibrant colors painted across the sky reminded me of how beautiful life can be, even amidst the storms. I turned to Rachel and said, "I think we're getting there. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel." She smiled, her eyes glistening with a blend of hope and tears. "Me too. We're not where we used to be, and we're learning to navigate this together. I know we can make it." As time passed, I became more confident in our ability to rebuild. I realized that while Rachel's betrayal had shaken our foundation, it had also given us a chance to rediscover each other in a way we hadn't anticipated. We were no longer just husband and wife. We were partners, learning and growing through adversity. I had learned that technology could aid in understanding, but ultimately, it was our commitment to each other that would define our relationship. In the end, love, trust, and communication were the pillars we needed to rebuild our marriage. Reflecting on the journey, I felt grateful for the lessons learned. I had come to understand that life is unpredictable and relationships require constant effort and vulnerability. Through adversity, I had discovered my own strength and resilience, and I was prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead. For anyone facing similar struggles, I would say this: healing takes time, and rebuilding trust is a gradual process, but it's possible if both partners are willing to put in the work. Embrace the vulnerability, communicate openly, and be willing to learn from each other. It may not be easy, but love can endure even the darkest of times if you're willing to fight for it. As I held Rachel's hand that night, watching the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a renewed sense of hope for our future. We had come through the storm together, and while the scars would always remain, they were a testament to our resilience and commitment to love.